Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
In the spirit of reconciliation, the Theatre Thoughts podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all traditional custodians of the land on which our episodes are recorded.
I think my favourite thing about the script, though, is it's set during the Troubles and it has this really big political context that like the world sits in, but it's not about the Troubles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very much about like relationship and love and platonic love. I think that's my favorite part about it, is it has this like thing that's cooking underneath it the whole time, that is like a high stakes context that they live in, but it's not about that.
You're listening to the Theatre Thoughts podcast, your backstage pass to the world of theatre in Australia and beyond. I'm Justin, your guide through the drama, comedy and pure magic of the stage, from the heart of Australia to the grandest stages worldwide. Join us here for enlightening conversations, reviews and behind-the-scenes stories from the artists themselves. Subscribe for your regular dose of theatre inspiration and consider supporting us on Patreon for exclusive content. Follow us on Instagram at TheatreThoughtsAUS and TTPod_official, and discover even more over on our TikTok, Theatre Thoughts Australia. So join us as we rise the curtain on a brand new episode of the Theatre Thoughts podcast. Welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Theatre Thoughts podcast. I have three amazing guests joining me today. So first of all, we have an emerging writer who completed her MFA in Writing for Performance at Australia's National Institute of Dramatic Art in 2020. Her graduate play, Never Closer, which we are talking about, was produced as part of Belvoir St Theatre's 2022-25A program, a lot of twos. She's currently developing a new musical, Paper Stars, which is a musical retelling of how P.L. Travers wrote Mary Poppins, and I will talk about that. It's Grace Chapple.
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you for having me.
I will talk about that because I was at the showing in Melbourne where you guys did the song.
Yeah,
so
right.
I want to talk about that. Okay, our second guest. We have a graduate from Whopper's acting course who is an actor and producer, I didn't know this, working across a range of theatre, film and TV. Theatre credits include Never Closer, Hamlet for Bell Shakespeare and On the Beach for Sydney Theatre Company. TV credits include Bump for Stan, Pieces of Her for Netflix and Friends and Strangers, which was selected in the British Film Institute's top 50 films of 2021. Emma Diaz, thank you so much for jumping on.
My pleasure. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you. And then last but not least, we have the current resident director at Belvoir St Theatre. Her past works include Wayside Bride, Never Closer, The Sorry Mum Project, and Blessed Union. She was the 2020 to 2022 Andrew Cameron Fellow at Belvoir and the 2019 recipient of the ATYP Roseburn Leadership Scholarship. It's Hannah Goodwin.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's so weird because we went to uni together.
We
It was
did.
like, oh my God, it's my friend.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We both went to Wollongong University.
Yes.
Yeah.
We go way back.
Way back.
It's so great seeing how you've just flourished. to be
Thank
honest.
you, and vice versa.
Oh, thank you. Because I feel like I went overseas and then I came back and all of a sudden, like, you were just doing all this, like, stuff at Belvoir. And I was like, what's going on here?
I'm
It's
surprised too.
Yeah.
She's
And-
a powerhouse, and you should hear about her next year.
Oh my
it only
God.
gets
It's
better.
insane. So I'm so, like, I was over the moon, to be honest.
Thank you, that's very kind.
And then I think the first show I saw of yours was Never Closer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And honestly, like, it was my favourite show of the season. It just stuck with me, you know, in so many ways. So I'm so glad to have all three of you on to talk about it, because it's coming upstairs, it's moving out of the basement, coming upstairs to the main stage at Belvoir for 2024.
We're so glad. Apparently, that hasn't happened, that process from downstairs to upstairs, in 17 years.
Really? Wow.
So we're super stoked that, like, this is the one that's made the transition again.
Yeah.
And we're all just so excited to get to do it again.
Yes. I can't wait.
So good. And Grace, so you wrote Never Closer.
I did, yes.
Emma, you were in it. And then Hannah, you obviously directed it.
I did.
So we will get to that in a sec, but I'd love to know more about you first, because Emma, I haven't said this to anyone, but I'm a super fan of yours. And I was so excited to have you on. Like, when I was messaging Hannah, I wasn't like being very forward. I was like, I really hope that Emma comes. I'd love to talk to her. Because I saw you in Never Closer, and I was like, she's got it. And then I saw you in what was I always forget the name of it, and I loved it. And it was Blessed Union, and it just consolidated it. And then me and producer Marty went to see On the Beach, and you were in that as well, but you weren't in it enough. And I was like,
I agree.
bring Emma back.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I had some really cute comments after On the Beach, because I got to play multiple characters in that for the first time in a while. I got to play a variation of people and like have multiple wigs, and people after it were like, oh, that character was so great, I wish she came back. And I was like, but what about this person? Did you see that? And people were like, I didn't even know that was you.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I know that
What
was
a
like
compliment.
a
Yeah.
high compliment.
Yes,
I
yes.
thought,
It's
like,
huge.
Great.
she's transformative.
Fully transformative.
is.
Excellent. And then Grace, that's right, Paper Stars. So yes, I was at the workshop in Melbourne where you presented Paper Stars, and I remember it stood out to me because one, the song was great, and two, I was like, that's how you make a musical. That's the perfect idea for a musical. So the story of P.L. Travers writing Mary Poppins just makes so much sense.
So I can't actually take credit for the idea of the musical.
That's
it
okay.
wasn't my idea, but I'm so glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So did you ever see what was the Peter Pan one? The Johnny Depp was in it. He made the movie
Finding Neverland.
Finding
Yeah,
Neverland.
I love
It's
that
got that
movie.
sort of vibe.
Yeah,
and I was like,
absolutely.
very clever.
Yeah, and I kind of just love writing about writers. Like, I know it's a bit navel-gazing, but I'm just fascinated by like the creative process in that specific way. And she's just like a really weird, interesting character. If anyone has seen that Disney movie, what's it called?
Isn't it Finding Mr.
Saving
Mrs. Banks?
Saving Mr. Banks.
Saving
Finding
Mr.
Neverland,
Banks.
Yeah.
Saving Mr. Banks. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one. Yeah.
yeah, it's about her. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Cool.
I'm desperate to read it, hear it. I haven't had a chance yet.
Oh, we never know.
Listen.
Well, I'd love to know more about you all. And for those who don't know you guys, I'd love if you could talk about yourselves for a bit and tell us like the best things to know about yourselves for listeners, I suppose. Like, what are the top things to know about you?
Thanks for going first.
I mean, we could talk about each other. Would that be easier?
Oh, yes. Julia and Eliza did that from Little Eggs. They talked about each other and it was very wholesome.
Yeah. I mean, or we could just talk. I'm happy to talk about myself. I do that sometimes. I'm a director. I trained as an actor first. We went to uni
Yes.
together, Wollongong University. And I started directing because I was lucky to have some friends who started writing plays, and they were quite good. And I was going to produce them, and then I had a very dear friend, Mark Rogers, who's also an amazing playwright. He was like, what are you doing? Why don't you just direct these plays? And I had never thought of it before, and I did, and I loved it, and I kept doing it.
Yeah.
And now I work at Belvoir.
Because
That's
you
me.
worked with Pippa Ellams on
Yes.
the Sorry Mum project.
Yes, and
Yeah.
before that was actually the second play that we did together. The first show we did was a play called The Carousel,
That's right, yeah.
which we developed at Shopfront Arts
Oh, did you
Co-op.
do that shop front? Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
as part
Okay.
of Arts Lab.
Yeah,
and
right.
that was my first go at directing,
Yeah.
and is still a very, very special show to me.
Mm.
I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, love Pippa.
Nice. She's gem.
She is,
Yeah.
and very talented.
Yeah. Emma, what about you?
I am an actor, but I also, like you said, work as a producer. I graduated Whopper acting a while ago, and I think straight out of drama school got a little bit bored with the industry and
right.
kind of just started to try and do indie producing as a way to like keep myself engaged in the industry while like you wait around for an audition. So I didn't really like that process. So went into producing land quite heavily for a little while there.
Yeah.
And I have produced 3 shows in the Downstairs Theatre
Yes.
in 25A.
Yes,
so
I saw that.
That's kind of how I transitioned to working at Belvoir as a producer.
Right, okay.
As well as getting to like, be involved in an acting capacity there. But what else about me?
You're one of the best indie producers in this city, I think.
Whoa, okay.
And so much so that you could have nearly done that full time, right?
Yeah,
You've had to
right.
really hold the line.
I've had to avoid becoming a full-time producer quite intensely.
How great.
And I'm so lucky at the moment at Belvoir. They are so generous with sharing my time with my acting career, because I also still really love acting and I've managed to do a lot of projects that I really care about. So yeah, it's a fine balance, but I've kind of figured it out at the moment anyway. What else do you want to know about me? I
don't know. What's your favourite colour?
Orange.
Oh, there you go.
Really great one.
That is wild to me.
Okay.
And Grace, what about yourself?
So I am a playwright mostly. And I actually also started out doing acting.
No
I
way.
don't know if you guys know that. But I actually wasn't very good at it. So that's why I started to write, was because I didn't get cast in anything. So I was like, well, I'm going to make my own play then.
Love it. Good.
So I started writing like sort of one-act fringe plays and like self-producing, and then fell in love with the writing part. So I started writing very late. Like I never wrote at all before that.
Oh, right. Okay.
That was like 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now here we are.
Moral of the story is that theatre careers need to be multifaceted.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
gotta
You
do
can go into
multiple
all
things.
categories.
Hybrid
Yeah.
arts workers. There you go.
Love it. You are a producer, I can see. Well, I'd love it if I could ask you our theatre thoughts questions to kind of get into your brains a little bit more about theatre. So, because there's 3 of you, we'll do like a 1 question, then like 1, 1, 1.
Okay.
So, I don't know, we'll start with Hannah, we'll go down the line, I suppose.
Perfect. No, go the other
Oh, the
way.
other way. Sorry, Grace,
I
we'll go
went first
down the
last
line.
time. You can go that way.
Okay, well, here we go. What has been your favourite production you've seen recently?
Yep. Okay. A few weeks ago I saw Is God Is at STC. I think that's just closed. Oh, I just loved it so much. It was so fun. Like I actually came out of the theatre and turned to the person I came with and I was like, did you remember that theatre could be fun? Obviously there's a lot of other stuff, but yeah, I mean the way that it was like about like really serious issues but done in like such a very theatrical, it could only be done in the theatre and it was done perfectly and I loved it.
I'd love to know what you thought of the script from like a playwright's perspective, because the script is insane, because it's like scribbles and like sideways and big letters.
Oh, I've actually never looked at the
you should have a look at it.
Okay,
it's
great,
like it's very much open to interpretation.
Awesome.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you think of it.
I was lucky enough to go to Edinburgh Festival for the first time in my life recently.
Year?
Yeah.
Probably
it was my
were there
first
at the same time.
We probably were. And so in the last week of it, I got to like cram in a bunch of shows. I saw like crazy bonkers comedy and stand-up, but I saw a play called Strategic Love Play by Miriam Batty.
Yeah.
And I loved it because it's such an actor's play. Like
Yeah,
it's just a
right.
two-hander that's like 2 people meeting, falling in love really quickly, and like also that go at each other for the kind of process of falling in love, or like what it means to have a relationship in the modern world. And so I was like, just my little actor heart was like, oh my God, someone bring this to Sydney, Hannah.
So good.
I've been desperate to read it. I
And
haven't gotten to it.
Put me in it. Thank you.
Noted.
What do you think of the festival? Because you said it was your first time.
It was my first time
Yeah.
and I loved it. Edinburgh is so beautiful.
insane.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like everywhere it's so well organized. It's just like I loved the cool weather actually.
Yeah,
I've been in elsewhere in Europe before that and was just like, I'm uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
it's just so well organized and a beautiful city to like walk around in and just
I
get to see a
forgot how much
million
of a
things.
walking city it is because I was
Yeah.
there in like 2015, and then this time my apartment I had was on the other side of the city where the castle is. It kind of splits in two. You're either on the castle side or the not the castle side. I should have chose the castle side because I had to walk 20 minutes uphill like to every show. My calves at the end were just like, it was great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an excellent time.
Love that.
I understand why people get addicted to
Yeah.
it. I completely get it.
For sure.
I was so jealous of everyone over there this
Yeah.
year. It felt like everyone was there in
Yeah.
Edinburgh this year. It looked like
It was
such
nice
a
to
good
go
time.
as just a participant,
Yes.
like
like a
it was nice to
punter.
go as a patron.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't have any stakes in
Yeah.
the kind of craziness of it. I just got to go and watch
Yeah.
all of my friends, but also a million people from
Yes.
overseas
Yeah.
do their thing. It was really great.
Yeah.
And Hannah, what about you?
I suppose it's not that recent now, but a show I've been thinking about a lot recently. I got to see Jackie by Declan Ferber-Gillick at MTC earlier in the year, and I
Yeah.
just so loved it. Really excellent detailed performances and a surprising story with really complicated relationships. So that, and then can I have a second?
Of course you can.
It's sort of, I didn't put it as my number one because it's a bit it's a bit nepotism, I guess.
Oh,
But,
okay, yeah.
I just was in Darwin with Regroup. They did their show Coil again.
Oh, yes.
And I went being like, maybe I just like this show because a lot of my friends made it. But I went and watched it again and I was like, no, this is actually an extraordinarily good show.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
what I've heard.
as well.
Everyone
It
who's
is. I
mentioned
love that
it.
show so much. Yeah.
It's so
I need to
impressive.
see it. It's come like so many times, and I just keep missing it, and I need to go and see it.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary show. I sort of went back and forgot how well built it was.
Yeah.
So proud of them.
Love that. Cool. Well, what I might do is I'll ask the individual questions because I was going through them, and I was like, this doesn't mesh, so I'll get one each. So I'll do one and one. So,
Yeah, great.
Grace, I'd love to know if you could see one of your own works produced internationally, where would you like it to be staged?
Okay. I am a huge fan of London theatre, West End. So I think, one of those big theatres would be just such a dream come true. Like to get to the Royal Court.
Yeah.
But then there's so many amazing, like the Bridge Theatre.
That's where Guys and Dolls is at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a production they did of Midsummer Night's Dream a few years ago
Yeah,
as
right.
well. They're just so good. Or like the National or any. Yeah.
Oh,
I'll take them all.
interesting moments. That'd be great. Emma, I'd love to know what your dream role is, or one you've always wanted to tackle. Yeah, one you've wanted to tackle.
This is a tricky question for me because I have a dream role in TV and film land.
Okay.
I've always wanted to play
Oh, well, tell us both. Let's go.
like a very serious badass detective.
Yeah, nice.
So that's my one day role for like that.
Like a Broadchurch
end-
sort of thing?
Yes.
Yeah? Nice.
Exactly. Like all of the serious crime dramas, like a torn up detective. Sounds so silly.
case.
But I'm going to play that one day.
I love
it. But in theatre, I don't know that I have one other than like the obvious answer where we were saying before in school you get brought up thinking of like the great Shakespeare's
Yeah.
as the dream role. So I do have in the back of my mind that I always have wanted to play Lady Macbeth.
Yeah.
But most of the works that I get really excited about at the moment are new Australian works. So who knows?
And you're really defining a lot of those as well. Like your face just pops up in all these great shows that are so impactful. So I think what you're doing is right. So keep doing it.
It's very kind.
And Hannah, name a dream show you'd love to direct.
This is really hard too. My boring answer to this question is always something that doesn't exist yet because I love directing new work and preferably whatever Grace writes next.
Yeah.
But recently I've really been wanting to direct Summer and Smoke, which is a Tennessee Williams play.
Yeah, right. How cool. And you've got some great shows next year. Curious
I do.
Incident.
I know.
Oh, mate, when I saw Curious Incident on the list, I was like, yes. And then when I saw you were directing it, I was like, yes, yes. So
I'm very excited. That's a bucket list play as well, for sure.
is.
So's The Almighty Sometimes, which I'm doing at MTC.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's landed in my lap
Wow.
as
Such
well.
a brilliant play as well.
Yeah.
So
It is.
good.
It's extraordinarily good. Yeah.
I saw Curious Incident in London
Hmm.
and I was just like gobsmacked by it. Like so much so I had to go and read the book. And the book's like incredible as well. So I'm really interested to see what you do with it.
Yeah, me too.
We all are.
The original
year,
production
though.
looms large. It does.
Yeah.
But I think we can do a version.
You
at
need to
Belvoir
have a
that's
puppy though. Because
really
like if
special.
anyone who's read the book, if you don't have a puppy, I'm walking out.
Talk to the producers at Belvoir. Emma Diaz, I'm looking at you.
Because it was one of those moments where literally I haven't experienced before where everyone was dead silent. They were so involved. And then for anyone who's read the book, at the end, it brings out a puppy. And I swear to God, the entire audience went, oh, it was just so beautiful.
It's such a beautiful moment. It's such a great way to bookmark the end of that play,
Yeah.
given where you begin with the death of the dog.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's great.
How great. Well, the final question is I'd love to know which production you would almost want to see come to Australia.
I would love to see just anything directed by Rebecca Frecknell come to Australia, but especially her streetcar production that was just on at the Almeida.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
one with Paul Mescal.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Or her cabaret.
Not the
also-
one in London.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
saw that. It is
Did you?
so good.
I'm so jealous.
It's insane. I wish I'd saw it or seen it with Eddie Redmayne
Yes.
in the lead because I would have just been out of this world.
Yeah.
But like, it's fully immersive from
Yes.
the moment you step in. Like I still have the sticker on my phone actually. They cover your phone up so you can't take any videos or photos as soon as you get in. And there's like cabaret dancers in the hall. You get a little shot as you walk in. There's like people on violins. There's people doing like dancing up the top. And then you go into the theatre and enjoy the show.
my gosh,
So it's like you're
amazing.
walking into the Kit Kat Club as a whole. You know?
I think they had to renovate the venue.
They did,
to
yeah.
do it. Like big production. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to see
Yeah,
that come
bring it
to
here.
Australia.
Oh,
Yeah.
easily. I love that. Great answer. Emma?
Thank you. No, it's you can be
Nah, say it
excited
again.
by
Yeah.
that show. Oh, you want to do it though, so you can't. You want a
Say-
new production.
I would like, the production that I saw that recently at Edinburgh was that I would love for that to come
Yeah.
here, but I also want us to do our
Yeah.
own version
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
like, maybe not.
I'll beep it.
Yeah,
Like, this show.
This show, it was really good.
And Grace?
Just off the top of my head, I've been hearing amazing things about this. Have you heard about the one-man Uncle Vanya that
Yes,
Andrew Scott's
with
been
Andrew
doing?
Scott, yeah.
Yeah. My friend went and saw it, and he described like seeing Andrew Scott have sex with himself on stage.
No way.
As like an emotional, like impactful moment. Like it wasn't played for laughs.
incredible.
I know.
I love him.
Oh, he is incredible. I was
Yeah.
saying this to Eliza Scott and Julie Robertson that I saw him play Hamlet. And it was like revolutionary for my love of that play.
Yeah.
Because I love Hamlet. It's like my all-time favorite Shakespeare. I know like back to front. And it just changed it like all over for me, you know?
Yeah.
Just in how he spoke it. It was like he was speaking plain English. And I was just
Amazing.
like, incredible. Incredible.
You've
Yeah.
probably seen a few Hamlets as well.
I
by
saw
now.
the National Theatre Live of Benedict Cumberbatch's
Oh, yeah.
one, and I kind of enjoyed Andrew's one. And I was like, I didn't think I'd say that, but there you
Ooh.
go. Yeah,
How
yeah,
exciting.
it was good. All right, well, thank you so much for answering those. That was great. I love talking theatre.
I know, me too.
Fun.
It's so fun when it catches and everyone gets excited.
Yeah,
Like,
you're all
that's
getting oh.
Getting the buzz.
Well, we'll take a quick little break, and then we'll talk about Never Closer.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Alrighty, well, let's talk Never Closer then, because like I said, I saw this, I loved it, it was great. So I'm really keen to see it again upstairs. So quick little bio for anyone who didn't see it. So it's in Northern Ireland, 1987. Deirdre is stuck between arguments, nations, and the life she almost lived. But when her old school friends gather in a kitchen yet again for Christmas Eve, one of them turns up with a surprise fiancé, and he's English. So it's set during the Troubles. So everything contextually wraps around that. So I'd love to know, first of all, where did the idea come from? And then I'll ask later whether you're going to change or how you're going to change it. But obviously don't spoil it for us.
Sure.
Yeah, so Grace. Grace, sorry. Where did the idea come from?
So I guess setting it in the Troubles, the idea for that came from my mum grew up there during that period of history. And so that was always kind of like fascinating to me, like visiting her family who is still over there and sort of like confronting that. I don't know, it is still kind of a bizarre place to visit. Like you feel the wounds of that conflict still. And then in my own life, I left home for the first time. So I moved to Sydney to study at NIDA. So I guess I just started like rethinking about my mum leaving her home, like in that context. And yeah, and then like the people who stayed, and because I was thinking a lot about my friends who were back home and like leaving them behind and like chasing a new future. And so it was that sort of resonance was the birthplace of the idea.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
It's funny actually because I didn't know a lot about it, and I remember when I was teaching, my kids were studying zombie, and I was trying to like teach them about like the context, but I don't think I myself understood it. And then when I saw Never Closer, I actually learnt a lot because then I went to research and figure out what the heck was going on. And then I watched Dairy Girls as well, and that like also consolidated other stuff for me. So I think that's fascinating, and the whole story around it. And it's my favorite type of show where it's like a kitchen sink sort of drama. You know, everyone's in one place,
I love them too.
and everything happens over one night. Chuck some alcohol in. It's very much like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf sort of vibes, like with the alcohol and fueling the anger. So I was like enwrapped by it.
Oh, thank you.
I think my favorite thing about the script, though, is it's set during the Troubles and it has this really big political context that like the world sits in, but it's not about the Troubles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very much about like relationship and love and platonic love. I think that's my favorite part about it, is it has this like thing that's cooking underneath it the whole time that is like a high stakes context that they live in, but it's not about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the amount of people when we were auditioning that got back to me and were like, when was this written? Like they didn't realise it was a brand new play. They thought it was like a well-known classic.
I thought the exact same thing. I thought the same thing. And then when I think you told me that it was new, and I was like, oh, yeah, incredible.
It's extraordinary. Yeah. And I think that's because the context, the setting is very detailed and specific, but the questions that it asks are really big, human, scalable questions. And so some people ask about, why do this play now? I find that question quite difficult to answer because I think my answer for this play would be that we'll still be asking the questions that this play asks in like 10 years, in 50 years.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask you. So
well, I've skipped ahead. But yeah, somehow Grace manages to catch like the held breath of a generation in one living room, and miraculously it speaks to, I guess, the held breath of our generation in these really interesting ways.
Yeah. I love that. Great answer. That's cool. That's why you're the director. And Emma, so obviously, now you played Deirdre in the show. What was it like approaching her as a character?
It's probably the most difficult role that I've ever undertaken. She's... How do I describe her? Wow. She's someone that has stayed in kind of one place physically her whole life. She's been in one town and kind of has this deep pride and respect for the place that she lives in, that she's become quite protective of it and of the people that have stayed there. So she has this kind of resentment towards people that have left and gone on to do other things that have not worked on what she really cares about, which is the place. So she's really complicated because she yearns for these other things and other connections that she limits herself from because she believes so much in this place that she's like trying to work on. So she goes on a huge journey throughout this single evening to kind of confront all of those emotions.
Yeah, that's great.
All the missed opportunities and missed communications, and she's held on to them. For the best part about the play is that there are two scenes that are 10 years later, right at the start of the play, and so you get the effect of just seeing all of those missed opportunities accumulate on someone like instantly. And then all come to a head in one evening.
It's beautiful.
So it's pretty intense for Emma.
It would be.
It's a big one. She has, like we say, this kind of youthful, just leaving school approach. Like everything is possible to her. And then we jump 10 years and the weight of the world has really sat on her for that whole 10 years. Yeah, right. So...
And you do a very good job of depicting that in like that kind of transition.
How do you like de-stress from that after the show? Like, do you have like a routine you do?
Yeah, a lot of dancing and moving around and being silly.
Yeah,
like we're so lucky. Our cast is the best, and we get to be really silly together before and after the show. Actually, I think part of going into something that's like a very big emotional journey and a huge emotional role for me is actually not getting into like a heavy headspace, but like hyping myself up and getting high energy kind of like joyous big energy to be able to deliver that thing every night. It's not about like getting into like an emotional place because the words do that for you. You build into that journey through with everyone on stage.
The other thing we were really conscious of when we were making it was because there are some pretty heavy themes in it, is that not to get ahead of that, like to build in heaps of joy and heaps of silliness. And a lot of
funny.
It is funny.
It's really funny.
There's one point where it kind of peaks in the middle.
Yeah.
Of just real, silly. Like so funny.
And I think our way through that really was through the relationships, which are very beautifully rendered by Grace and live rent-free.
And by our cast, my God.
Totally, totally. That they just live rent-free in the back of my head, these characters.
Right.
But that because they're such old friends, they can be so bizarre with each other. And there's real joy and freedom in that, in the play, where they get to be a bit feral. And I think that also helps. Like the humour and the beauty of the work means that we can go a little bit deeper onto some of that darker stuff.
That's one of the things that I've worked with Hannah on 2 shows now, and both of them have been plays that have casts that are, characters that are really, really close to each other, like families or these very old friends. And I love the process of Hannah getting us into that place where we're so feral that we get to be weird with each other because they're the people that you're closest to are the people that you get to be kind of your weirdest, grossest, messiest in front of.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's something that I've really like taken from working with Hannah is like those people and those really close relationships are the ones that like can be really like you say, bizarre.
Bizarre.
And I think that was some of the loveliest feedback that we got for the last production of like people coming, just completely buying the friendship of the
Yeah,
cast. Like
definitely.
the chemistry of you all just worked so well that it just like totally lifted from the piece. Yeah.
And I guess because you're going from 25A, which is a small space, to obviously you get to play with the, you know, all the toys in the big theatre.
Yes.
How are you approaching like the change?
That's a really interesting question. I wasn't quite expecting to answer it. I'm still in process thinking about that because also there was so much about the play that worked beautifully in the downstairs theatre and I think worked beautifully inside the context of 25A because of the restraints of that program, which I find a delightful, delightful challenge. So I guess the way I'm thinking about it at the moment is not to go too crazy with all of the bells and whistles, actually, is to preserve and elevate what worked really well in the downstairs to take it into that upstairs theatre. But we've got, there'll be a different seating configuration.
Ooh, very good.
And a few other tricks up our sleeve.
Cool.
Yeah, so there will be some different stuff in the production.
And I guess when you worked on Blessed Union as well, like that's a kind of similar like kind of setting, I guess, like set in the kitchen and you did everything right with the, you know, the cooking in the kitchen, everything for that. So I guess you kind of have played around in that sphere already.
Definitely, yeah. And it's a really great space for it actually upstairs because while it is a bigger theatre, all the audience feel like they're in the same room on that upstairs stage, which is really unusual. And I think Never Closer will just sing beautifully up there. When we were started working on it, I'd always hoped that if we did it well enough in the downstairs, that something like this would be possible.
Yeah, right.
And when I first read it, I did really picture it on that corner stage upstairs, just partly because that's where I was working, and also because it is my favourite theatre in Sydney. But I also think there's something about the play and the way that it asks you to sit with people and relationships that will just work really well up there.
How great. Well, I'm very excited to see what you do with it. I really, really am. It's like one of my most anticipated shows of next year, so I'm very excited.
Thank you.
Well, I'd love to ask you a question I ask everyone on the podcast, and I'd love to see your answers to this. I'd love you to talk about how you think the theatre industry's changed over the years and how those changes have sort of impacted the work you do or the work that you create or take part in. It's a bit of a big one. So
that is a huge
if you want to think
question.
for a sec, that's totally fine.
I think one of the biggest things that's changed since I was active in the industry, like since I graduated or since I was studying, is that when I began, there were very few women directors working, and now there are mostly women directors working. And more than that, there's greater diversity across the board, and I think the conversation around equity and justice has progressed a lot, and obviously we're still on that path, but the teams behind shows, the people who are on stage and it looks very, very different now, and I think that's really I mean, when I saw that stuff happening and changing around Me Too, or when Women in Theatre and Screen were working and doing those festivals, that really changed the path of my career, just like looking at women being like, enough is enough. We're actually going to take up some space here. So that's changed a lot. I think the other thing that's changed is the explosion of new work.
Yeah, especially in Australia.
Massive.
We do so much.
I know. And that's really exciting because that's what I'm interested in. But it also does make me think about how trend focused we can be in Sydney anyway. I think there is perhaps... I don't know if there was ever more diversity in approach or form or practice in terms of the ways to make work, but I think we have become potentially more uniform in the way that we approach making work at a main stage level. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
Like devising is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
When I was coming through and the people I was watching after I graduated who really inspired me were like people like the Hayloft Project or Sisters Grimm and those collectives that produce these incredible artists, incredible shows, and that doesn't seem to happen quite as much anymore. I don't know if that's pressures of city life or...
Could be a whole bunch of things, I
but
suppose.
Those three things I think have changed a lot.
Yeah, I love that.
I think a lot of the process of how we make work has shifted in that the thinking behind it is now not just putting it on the stage, but making it with communities that it's representing. So I think that's been a really big shift in main stage context to like kind of try, and there's still a long way to go, but try and bring that all the way through creative process, through development process, to involve a wider spectrum of the actual communities that these shows are talking about in the process. So it's on the way.
Yeah,
There's still lots to do.
There's
Still
so
so
much
much,
to do,
but-
isn't there?
But you can see it happening, which is exciting.
Yeah,
And there is conversation happening in
Yeah.
a way that it wasn't 10 years ago.
Yeah, even I think just the shows that are put on, like Is Gozzy is, is such a good show to put on as the touring production, from Melbourne Theatre to Sydney Theatre. It's just great choices.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, very exciting.
Grace?
Yeah, I still feel very kind of new to the scene. So I don't feel like I have a great sort of broad understanding of it. But and maybe from like what I have seen from like audience as well as working within it is, I mean, like lots of people talk about the sort of disappearance of the medium sector between indie and main stage.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting to think about in the context of our show. Like we're so excited and like lucky and grateful like to be able to transition this 25-8 production indie stage, take the whole crew and get to do that in main stage
It's great.
capacity. It's so awesome. It's like pretty rare though, and it's like we're really lucky that it's worked out, but those pathways seem, from my perspective, however limited that is, to be quite reduced. I don't know.
I think Belvoir has a good track record of supporting like works like for instance your show, like going from 25 to main. Fangirls is obviously like the one go-to one I always talk about.
Definitely.
So I think it's a good opportunity to to be given for sure.
Totally. We want to protect those pathways for new artists. Yeah.
I love that. Great answers. Thank you so much. They got
Thank
really
you.
deep and meaningful. I loved it. Well, thank you so much for giving me your time and coming in and having a chat. I've absolutely loved it. I'm very excited to see Never Closer again. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
great.
so much for having us. It was
We're
really-
so excited to do it. We can't stop. It's in May, but we're genuinely thrilled already to know that it's happening. So thanks for
Every
having
time I
us.
think about it, I get giddy.
A massive thank you to Hannah, Emma and Grace for joining us as our special guests on this week's episode. You can book your tickets now to Never Closer, playing in the Upstairs Theatre at Belvoir St Theatre from the 25th of May to the 16th of June 2024. Head to belvoir.com.au/productions or follow the link in this episode's description. This episode was produced by Echidna Audio. Follow them on Instagram at Echidna Audio for all their audio services. Once again, if you enjoyed our podcast, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts and head to the link in this episode's description for our Instagram account, TikTok, YouTube, and Patreon. My name's Justin Clarke, and I'll see you next time here on the Theatre Thoughts Podcast.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite performer actually feels? Well, here's your chance. Welcome to The Quiet Part Out Loud with me, Bobby Steggert, Broadway actor and now a therapist to a whole host of Broadway creatives. Part interview, part therapy, this is not your typical podcast. We'll go right to the heart of things with some of your favorite artists, what they still struggle with, what lessons they've learned, what they haven't figured out yet. There's enormous power in saying the quiet part out loud. Are you listening?
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.